We begin with a hard truth, gentlemen. Procrastination is not a time problem. It's not an intelligence problem. It is not even a motivation problem. It is a discipline problem, meaning a problem of obedience. Obedience to your chosen path, even when your body wants comfort, even when your mind wants escape, even when your emotions try to bargain. Because the modern world does not defeat men with hardship. It defeats men with options, with noise, with easy reward, with 1,000 small exits scattered around every important task. And every time you take one of those exits, you teach yourself something. You teach yourself that discomfort is a command, that friction is a stop sign, that your impulses outrank your intentions. That is why procrastination becomes identity. So, today, I want to give you one rule. It is simple enough to use when you're tired, strict enough to work when you don't feel like it. And if you apply it daily, it will rebuild the part of you that does not negotiate with weakness. This is the 10-minute rule that ends procrastination. Here is the rule. Exactly. Choose one task. Set a timer for 10 minutes. For those 10 minutes, you do the task and only the task at whatever level you can manage. When the timer ends, you are allowed to stop. But you are not allowed to stop before the timer ends. That's the contract. Most men fail because their contract with themselves is emotional. It changes depending on mood. They wake up and they negotiate. If I feel good, I'll work. If I feel tired, I'll delay. If I feel inspired, I'll push. If I feel stressed, I'll escape. A man who negotiates with himself every morning is not free. He is governed by weather. And moods change faster than seasons. The timer does not care about your mood. That's why it works. Now understand what this rule is really doing. It is not trying to make you productive for 10 minutes. It is training you to cross the doorway. Because procrastination lives at the threshold. The first click, the first step, the first sentence, the first rep, the first uncomfortable moment where your mind realizes, we are actually doing this. That is where your nervous system panics. Not because the work is impossible, but because the work is uncertain, and uncertainty feels like danger. So, you do what you were trained to do. You seek relief. Relief looks harmless. A quick scroll, a small snack, one more video, a better plan, a little research, a tidy desk, a new notebook. Anything that gives you the sensation of control without the risk of effort. And then, the day disappears. The 10-minute rule is designed to cut that pattern at the root by making the first step unavoidable and small enough that your brain cannot justify running. 10 minutes is not your whole life. 10 minutes is not an identity shift in one heroic session. 10 minutes is simply proof. I can begin on command. In Japan, there is a principle called shitsuke. Discipline, training, the act of forming correct habits through repetition. Not through emotion, through practice. Shitsuke is what the 10-minute rule creates. You practice starting. You practice staying. You practice not obeying the impulse to flee. And there is another word, gaman, enduring the uncomfortable with dignity. Quiet endurance, not dramatic suffering, just the ability to remain. 10 minutes is gaman. It is short on purpose, because we are not trying to turn you into a machine. We are trying to rebuild your authority over your own mind. Now, most men hear this and immediately ruin it with loopholes. They try it once or twice, casually, while leaving their phone on the desk like a loaded weapon. And then they say, it didn't work. So, I'm going to give you the method the way it must be done. Clean, simple, and strict. Step 1. Choose one target. Not a list, not 3 tasks. Not work on my life. One task you can begin immediately. If you choose multiple targets, you give your mind a perfect hiding place. Confusion. Confusion feels like complexity. Complexity feels like intelligence. But it is often just avoidance in a suit. So choose one. Write the first paragraph. Do the warm-up and first set. Open the document and outline 3 bullet points. Wash the dishes. Send the email. Make the appointment. 1. Step 2. Define what counts. This is where men lie to themselves without realizing it. If your task is writing, work means words on the page, not font changes, not researching a new method, not watching another explanation. Words. If your task is studying, work means reading and producing notes or answers, not highlighting random lines like you're painting. If your task is training, work means movement, not browsing routines, not looking for the perfect playlist. Movement. You must draw a line between contact and avoidance, because avoidance always wants to wear the costume of productivity. Step 3. Remove the exits. Put the phone away. Silence notifications. Close unnecessary tabs. If you can, change your environment, face a wall, clear the desk. Put the temptation outside the room, because you cannot train discipline while feeding distraction. A man who says, "I will focus," but keeps the casino open on his desk, is not serious. He is hoping. Step 4. Start within 60 seconds. This is the sharp edge. This is where it becomes real. Once you decide the target and set the timer, you begin within 1 minute. No preparation. No, I'll just get comfortable. No, one last check. Preparation is often procrastination with better marketing. You begin, even badly. And this is important. You're allowed to begin like a beginner. There is a principle called shoshin, beginner's mind, the willingness to be imperfect, the willingness to look unskilled for a moment without running away. Procrastination is often pride, the need to do it perfectly or not at all. Shoshin breaks that pride. Now, once you begin, you will meet the resistance spike. It usually comes early, and it comes in 3 forms. The first is friction. Friction is the mind saying, "This is annoying, this is boring, this is slow." It is the discomfort of starting when the task has not yet warmed up, when you're still stiff, when the reward is not present. Most men interpret friction as a sign. They think it means, "I'm not meant to do this," or "I'm not in the right state." No, friction is simply the cost of entry. So when friction arrives, you do not negotiate, you downshift. If writing feels heavy, write 1 ugly sentence, or bullet points. If reading feels heavy, read 1 paragraph and summarize it in 1 line. If training feels heavy, do the warm-up slower but keep moving. Downshift, don't quit. The second form is fear. Fear is the mind saying, "What if you fail? What if you waste time? What if you discover you're not good enough?" Fear makes you want to avoid the task because the task threatens your ego. And the antidote to fear is not reassurance, it's separation. You separate yourself from the outcome and focus on the rep. 10 minutes is not finish the project. 10 minutes is do the rep. You are not here to prove you are great. You are here to practice. The third form is fatigue. Fatigue is the body saying, "Not today. You're tired. You deserve rest." Sometimes fatigue is real, and you should sleep, eat, recover. But most of the time, what you call fatigue is mental softness. The body can do more than the mind wants to admit. So the antidote to fatigue is minimalism, the smallest honest effort that keeps you in the arena. And the timer makes that minimal effort non-negotiable. Now here's the most important part. During the 10 minutes, Your only job is to keep contact with the task. Do not aim for brilliance, aim for contact, because contact creates momentum, and momentum creates clarity, and clarity creates speed. But if you never make contact, you live in imagination, and imagination always amplifies pain. In the mind, the task becomes a mountain. In reality, it becomes a series of steps. This is why 10 minutes is powerful. It collapses fantasy into reality. Now, when the timer ends, you must honor the contract. You are allowed to stop. This matters because discipline is built on trust. If you tell your mind, just 10 minutes, and then you force yourself into an hour every time, your mind will stop believing you. Then, even 10 minutes will feel like a trap. So, you keep your word. When the timer ends, you pause, you breathe, you ask one question: do I continue? Many days, you will, because once you cross the doorway, the work is not as heavy. Your nervous system stabilizes, the mind becomes quieter, the task becomes manageable. But if you don't continue, you still win, because you practiced obedience, you practiced shitsuke, you trained the starting muscle, and that muscle is what ends procrastination. Now I want to show you how to apply this rule to the tasks that you've been avoiding for weeks, the ones tied to your future, your dignity, your self-respect, because those are not avoided because they are hard. They are avoided because they carry meaning, and meaning creates pressure. So, we will remove pressure without removing seriousness. Here is the method. You will create a 10-minute gate for your most important task. Every day, the same time if possible, you must pass through the gate. Not when you feel like it, not when you have time. The gate is scheduled, like prayer, like training, like duty. Because a man who only works when he feels good is not building a life. He is gambling, so choose your time. Even if it's small. Morning is best because your mind is quieter and the world hasn't attacked you yet. But if morning is chaos, choose evening. The point is consistency. Then you decide your one task for that session. If you're building a business, 10 minutes of outreach, 10 minutes of writing, 10 minutes of product work. If you're studying, 10 minutes of problem sets, 10 minutes of active recall, 10 minutes of notes. If you're training, 10 minutes of warm-up and first movement. If you're rebuilding your life, 10 minutes of cleaning, 10 minutes of planning, 10 minutes of reading something that strengthens you. Now, as you do this daily, something strange happens. The mind begins to anticipate obedience. Right now, your mind anticipates escape. It anticipates that if things get uncomfortable, you will rescue it with dopamine. So, it panics early. It tries to pull you away before you even begin. But after a week of the 10-minute gate, your mind starts to learn. He doesn't negotiate. The timer starts, and we work. This is where stillness begins. There is a principle called Seijaku, inner quiet. Not the absence of noise outside, but the absence of chaos inside. The ability to hold your attention steady. Seijaku is not achieved by thinking about it. It is achieved by practicing attention under pressure. 10 minutes a day is enough to begin that practice. Now let's talk about the one detail that will determine whether this becomes a turning point in your life or just another technique you forget. What you do in the first 30 seconds. The first 30 seconds must be automatic, because if you hesitate, the mind will start presenting arguments, and some of those arguments will sound reasonable. That is the danger. So you need a starting ritual, something so small and consistent that it becomes a trigger. For writing, the ritual might be: open the document, write the date, write the title, write one ugly sentence. For training, put on shoes, fill the water, start the timer, start the warm-up. For studying, open the book, open a blank page, write the first question, same ritual every time. This creates a groove in the brain, a path. And once the path exists, resistance decreases because the decision has already been made. Decision fatigue is real, but discipline is stronger than fatigue when the path is clear. Now, there will still be days when you hate it, days when you feel hollow, days when the mind screams for escape. Those days are the most valuable, because discipline is not proven on good days. It is proven on ordinary days, on days where nothing is exciting, on days where no one is watching, on days where the only reward is self-respect. And self-respect is not given. It is earned through kept promises. Now we will address the question some of you are already asking. What if 10 minutes isn't enough? What if my life is behind? What if I need to do more? Listen carefully. The man who tries to go from zero to heroic usually returns to zero. Not because he's incapable, but because he's trying to build a cathedral without laying bricks. The 10-minute rule is the brick. Kaizen, continuous improvement, does not begin with intensity. It begins with consistency. So you start with 10 minutes. After 7 days, you add another 10-minute session or extend the timer to 15. But only if you've proven obedience first. Obedience before expansion. This is the order of strength. Now I want to give you a direct challenge. If you do this, you will feel the shift. For the next 7 days, choose one task that you've been avoiding. The task that would make you proud if you did it consistently. Every day, same time, you do the 10-minute gate. No excuses, no debate, no tomorrow. When the mind says not now, you do it anyway, with shoshin, like a beginner. When the mind says this is pointless, you do it anyway, with gaman, like a man. When the mind says just check your phone, you do it anyway, with Seijaku, like someone who values silence. At the end of 7 days, you will not just have progress, you will have evidence. Evidence that you can move without permission from your emotions. And once you have that evidence, procrastination loses its spell. Because the spell was always the same lie. You can't begin. Now you know you can. You don't need to be a different person. You need to practice being the person you already decided to become. So set your timer. Choose your one task. Enter the gate. And for 10 minutes, be unbreakable. End.